We'll put this in the middle. We'll do it right there.
Oh, one more gold one?
It was very
Fantastic. Every now
I
and
gotta
then.
go get a glass of water.
Now that it's allowed. I guess I'll grab one too.
Yeah.
Don't mind me. I'll take care of everything.
Yes.
Glad I came.
And I'm enjoying the go wherever, you know.
Doesn't that all work out for everyone?
I did. It always does.
I love that the laces.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're gonna be okay right there. So funny. All right, I think we're gonna get going. All right.
Abby, were we starting 11 o'clock Central
No, we're 11 o'clock
Mountain Time?
Mountain Time.
So I'm an hour early.
Yeah. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Venture Capital in Tulsa panel for our 4th day of Global Entrepreneurship Week here in Tulsa and in Oklahoma and also across the globe. Welcome to all of our panelists. We'll do some quick intros here in a little bit, but we're really excited to see you all, especially our competitors in the pitch competition directly following this event. So we appreciate you being here. Want to just do a quick survey of the room before we dive in. How many of you are founders, builders, entrepreneurs who are potentially interested in raising capital at some point? Awesome. Okay. So the majority of the room is made of that archetype. So we will be speaking from the perspective of, I'm a founder. How do I approach venture capital? What are venture capitalists looking for in founders and in companies they're looking to fund? So we have some questions prepared, but we'll also keep some time at the end for some Q&A. And then after this, we'll have a pitch competition where 3 local tech entrepreneurs will be presenting 6-minute pitches to our panel of judges. And we'll get to even learn how what we're learning today translates into a direct pitch competition situation. So thank you everyone for being here. We're gonna go down the line really quickly and just start with telling us briefly about yourselves and your backgrounds. Post-birth, post-conception, thank you, William. So if you can say your name, your trajectory into venture capital, and then just a brief overview of the fund that you're representing today. Susan, we'll start with you. Cool.
Hey guys, my name is Susan Waring. I'm an investment principal at Cortado Ventures. So we're technically headquartered in Oklahoma City, but I have an office out here as well. My path to VC, before this I was working in at a small innovation consultancy out of the University of Oklahoma. So we were early stage consulting projects with entrepreneurs, doing product market fit analysis, customer discovery, financial models. So that was kind of my trajectory into it. Is that everything? And I'm representing Cortado.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hi everyone, my name is Will Gray. I head up the investment team at Tulsa Panel. I started as a aspiring tennis player and realized later on that making negative $30,000 a year wasn't very sustainable. So I went into finance and worked at a mutual fund here in town, doing public equity research and covering communication services, consumer discretionary, and energy sectors. I did that for a number of years before I started working at a for the last couple of years. So, now for a little over 2 years.
Hey everybody, my name is Alfred Jackson. I lead investments and programs for Flagship's Tulsa office. Went to school at Loyola University of New Orleans and kind of got my trajectory into venture. My first year out of college, working at an accelerator in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I did a lot of corporate partnerships and relationship management, and then went to St. Louis, Missouri, where I've managed a portfolio of about 120 companies at a nonprofit called Arts Grants, helping them with fundraising, business development, talent acquisition, And that's pretty much what got me into full-time venture. First working at Atento and now working on Atento's LP investments last year.
Hi, everyone. I'm Talia Mayberry. I am currently the program manager for Act Tulsa here in Tulsa. It is an accelerator program partnership with Act House and I2E. I am very new to this space. It's about 8 months into this role and into DC. Very non-traditional path into DC. So kind of similar to Will, we actually went to the University of Tulsa together. We were both student athletes. So played basketball throughout college. Went on to play professionally for about 4 years. And then after that, I came back and I received my MBA as graduate assistant coach at Oral Roberts. And so basketball kind of helped me through undergrad, grad, all of that. But I quickly realized as I got into coaching that, okay, I love playing, but not so much coaching. So was looking to transition out. So I was here in Tulsa. I always had an interest in entrepreneurship. So I kind of started doing some research on entrepreneurship here in Tulsa. There were some awesome things going on. And so I kind of led that into transitioning into this role as program manager with this new accelerator program here in Tulsa.
My name is William Piva. I am the greatest ping pong player on this floor.
Sure.
Undisputed.
My favorite color is pink, and I love Mexican food, especially Tex-Mex. I got into venture more the traditional route, started my career out as a scientist. I actually, shocking based on looking at my outward demeanor, I started my career thinking I wanted to be an academic scientist. So I got a PhD in molecular biology, postdoc in neurobiology, and then decided to go to business school, did an MBA back east and got on the business side of science, which started me on a trajectory to get to the business side of science. And since that time, for the last 28 or so years, have been in healthcare finance, innovation, entrepreneurship. As it relates to this discussion, I manage a fund called OLSF Ventures. We are 21 years old. We were founded in 2000. We invest in early stage healthcare companies that have some form of operating presence in Oklahoma, and it's pretty across the board. So we'll do drugs, devices, diagnostics, tech-enabled services. I get why you laugh. That wasn't intended to be funny, but yes, we do drugs, legal ones. We also would look at vet, we look at ag, et cetera. So we're a life science fund. We do, but most of our work is in early stage healthcare. We've been doing it for 21 years. My team is myself and Sean Templemore Finlayson, and then we have 2 associates, Anne Marie and Ryan. So we're talking.
All right. How's everyone doing? Can we all hear okay? Fine, good. All right, perfect. So often at 36 Degrees North, when we're talking to founders, we hear the question, where do I go first? I have this idea. I don't have any resources. How do I get plugged into the community and also to venture capital and to some money? So typically we send them to our entrepreneurial resource guide, or we connect them with people in our community who provide them with good programming. But that doesn't answer the question of how do I approach venture capitalists and how do I prepare for that conversation? That's the question. How should a founder approach you?
Okay, I'll start. So I'll demystify it, and then I'll give you a recommendation. So there's this perception that you need the perfect plan to approach an early stage venture capitalist, right? Like I need to have, like, here's the plan, and then we'll read it, and then we'll play Nero and thumbs up you or thumbs down you and send you to the lions. That's actually not how it works, okay? We actually prefer that you come early and just have a concept and bring it to us and iterate it. Like, so I would encourage you not to spend a whole lot of time on developing the perfect business plan. Now, I think all the programming is great because it helps frame your thinking, et cetera, but don't feel like you need this perfectly, because we've been in the business for 21 years. We sometimes can say, okay, like, love what you're doing, but let's think about this revenue model versus the one you just spent months developing, right? So don't, now that's not to say ours is correct, but just don't feel bashful about approaching early stage venture capitalists with a concept and an idea and just talk through with them. We love that, right? We love that kind of stuff, right? Now, later stage venture tends to be a lot more structured, right? Those deals tend to get here's the plan. It's run by an investment banker. You need to get your letter of intent in by this date, et cetera. They're a lot more structured, right? But you're still in what I call the stage of making order out of chaos stage. So why not come to us and help you think through making order out of chaos? We've helped a lot of companies make order out of chaos. So demystifying it is that just don't feel like you have to have a perfect plan. How do you get in touch with us? Do you just come find us? I mean, you just send me a LinkedIn message, find me on the ping pong table, where I'm beating Will again for yet another time. Will's so mad right now, I can't stand it. I'm just teasing. Will's very mad.
So Maddie's gonna have to answer the question itself.
Yeah. No, but so yeah, you just approach them and don't, but I guess the biggest message is don't feel like you have to come with the perfect thing. Come and just talk to us and we'll work.
That's a pretty good answer. I think that,
Opponents of that answer.
I give it a six out of 10.
That's a pretty good answer. It is true. We see a variety of deals, and some of those deals are really far baked and with amazing financial projections, which are never going to come to fruition. I do kind of like it whenever someone has thought through a little bit about how they're going to go to market, what that might look like over time. I think probably the best place to start is really describing the market opportunities and the total addressable market, because one of the things that we really lean into with early stage founders is how much founder market fit does this founder have? How big of a problem is this, and how big is the market? Those are like the three biggest things that we kind of look for. And so instead of having a really robust plan that we might spend a lot of time preparing, instead maybe come with answering those 3-4 core things that VCs kind of look for.
Well, and one other demystification is like, we don't lose money on technology. I mean, you can almost always build a product, with the exception of a biotech drug that fails a clinical trial, then it's just worthless, right? Because I can sell sugar pills cheaper than I can a chemical entity, right? But absent a biotech deal, medical device deal, medical diagnostic, tech-enabled services, you can always build the widget, right? It might not look exactly like this, might look a little bit different, but you can build it. Where we lose money is you can't access the market in a cost-effective manner, right? So we see so many presentations where it's 18 slides on the technology, and would it be really cool if we do all this? And like eventually at some point, I'll just stop you and say, I'll stipulate you can build what you can build. Just tell me how you're going to get it to market. The key word in that sentence is in a cost-effective manner, because you can always some market channels are tight, they're tough, they're closed. And so it's, can you access the customer in a cost-effective manner? Spend your time there. That's where we lose money. It's because we can't do that.
And I would even add to even what they're discussing as far as researching and all that, but networking is really key. So get plugged in. It's a really special time in Tulsa right now when it comes to just the innovation and just the startup mindset. So come follow 36 Degrees North on social media. That way you can end up following other things in other places and get to understand, what type of VCs are out there, what is everybody doing, attend certain events. I've learned very quickly with transitioning into this space, once you know a couple people or a couple programs, then it opens the door for so many others. So getting plugged in is really key initially in order to kind of start to make those relationships as well.
And if I could build off of Will's one more comment, and thank you for being so gracious on my feedback comment. That's very generous. But let me tell you an example of a case study of a real world deal here in Tulsa. Okay, they want to sell scrubs into the dental market, right? And I'm thinking, why on earth would I be interested in scrubs in the dental market, right? Because we do normally technology, right? But these were the folks that used to work at Dentsply here in Tulsa, and they penetrated 80% of the market with Dentsply's dental platform. So guess what? He knows 80% of the market and how to get to it, right? Wow, forget about what they're selling. Just the fact that, and he had a very cogent plan, like the first wave, we're going to go to these 25 dentists in the northeastern Oklahoma market. And then we're going to go from there, we're going to go to Charlotte, because the Tulsa dental market is more close to the Charlotte market than this. I was like, holy cow, this person knows what the hell they're doing, right? So now guess what? I'm really interested in scrubs market, not because I'm actually interested in scrubs market, because these people actually know how to penetrate that market, right? To Will's point, right? They've got the right team, that's got the right fit, that's got what we don't like to do is invest in on-the-job training, especially with go-to-market strategies. or go-to-market execution.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to add about. So I think also I look at it like building a relationship. Sometimes it takes a few months before you kind of score a deal or kind of build a strong relationship. Sometimes it takes a long time to build it. So and different firms have different strategies of building relationships with founders. So for instance, at Lightship, we have a lot of different verticals that help funnel into our accelerator, into our, and those one of those main two are Twitch Pitch and Workflow Wednesdays. And so Twitch Pitch is like an online pitch competition. I run. A whole bunch of founders apply for it. So like, yo, we think it's cool. Hop on Twitch Pitch. During that process, we're able to get to know the founder, right? See how to talk about kind of the things that we I've talked about. Get to kind of understand just like kind of like the thought process, how they were talking about it so far. And some of that stuff is like, still in the early stages. And at the end of the night, writing like a small $20,000 grant check. Or we do boot camps, we're having one next week. And those are companies that are already kind of, in the market, and they're doing cool things, but it's an opportunity for us to get to know them. We're going through their investment deck, helping them with their pitches and presentations. And one, we're helping them, but also it's an opportunity to kind of see like how do they take how are they, taking on these new concepts that we're bringing to the table, or how do they push back? Like, what does this relationship look like? Because I'm sure anyone at this, on this panel will tell you that if you're getting an investment from an investor, that relationship is a really long relationship. So you want to get to kind of understand who is this person, what's their site. We also do Workflow Wednesdays, and a lot of the investment firms we do events. Atento is an amazing example of that. We're always doing really cool things to bring in entrepreneurs and bring in investors into the community so they can get to know a broad swath of entrepreneurs and build relationships. Some of those investments will come from tracking the relationship. So we do that at Lightship, we do Workflow Wednesday. So I think every firm has like a different approach, but I think a lot of the times it takes like building a relationship and seeing how that comes to fruition. A good example of that is Power Learning. They went through boot camp like last year. They went through Tenzo, they went through Tulsa, and we got to see how all that happened. And now we have an office and we need to invest. So I just, if you start seeing investors, you're like, oh, I really like some of the investment, go ahead and start reaching out with them. Go ahead and start reaching out to them. Even if you're not great to fundraise just yet, you can build that relationship so that when you kind of got some things figured out, you're able to say, okay, now I'm raising, I'm already ready to get into the round because I've tracked this growth and I've tracked this founder.
Yeah, Talia, will you touch on how Tulsa does some of that as well?
Yeah, for sure. So we're currently in our almost done with our first cohort. So we have 9 companies in program right now. So we take our companies through 6 months of programming. So first 3 months incubation, so a lot of business development, kind of getting into the fundamentals of kind of growing their business. And in the second 3 months, it's all implementation. So, taking what they've learned and starting to implement it. And so we have companies now, about half of our companies now that are about to have having conversations around fundraising. And so we kind of consider ourselves as, a process to kind of de-risk some of those factors that will go into, making those asks and meeting with those VCs and all of that. So, I mean, it kind of goes off of a lot of what Alfred is saying is, building those relationships up front, kind of understanding, learning, the ecosystem, the structure, the infrastructure, how it all works. And then, gaining that knowledge to then be ready be venture ready. And so that's what a lot of the second phase of what we're doing now is getting our founders ready, which they've had, being here in this incubator space, they've had a chance to, have conversations with the Tinto, seeing Will in the hallways and all of that. So just being in this space, being present, working towards these things now will kind of build up into being ready to access more capital.
So I think the synthesis of all of this is that it's never too early. Maybe you're never too rudimentary to approach a venture capitalist, and the earlier you can get plugged in, the better they can support you to become ready, or the easier they and we can funnel you into the right programs that can help you build those relationships and get you to that point. I'd love to switch over now and talk about when is a company fundable. So Susan, I'd love to hear from you immediately? Like, what are you
Patty,
looking?
before we go to that topic, can I give one, ask a question? But
Sure.
it's because I'm actually going to make a statement. So I'm gonna kind of-
Love it.
You just love to talk.
Yeah,
That's great.
of course.
my biggest recommendation to you also is like, and I know this is hard to implement because lots of times entrepreneurs are so desperate for money, they'll take money from anybody. Do as much due diligence on your investor as we're going to do on you.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, I've just seen it in 21 years. The only thing worse than being undercapitalized is being capitalized with money from people you don't want invested in your company. So do not take money. And any investor that won't give you a list of all, I've got a sheet of paper. Every CEO I've ever backed is on that sheet of paper with their cell phones, even ones I've fired, they're all on the list. And I'll hand that list to you. And you can call any of them. I don't really care. And anybody that won't give you that list, don't take the money, because I've just seen more bad investors screw up good companies than I've seen good investors make good companies great. So please do your due diligence. And I know it's tough because you sometimes need the money. I'm just telling you, be careful who you get in bed with. Because as was said earlier, it's a long journey, it's a long marriage, it's et cetera. Just make sure you do as much on the side. And any investor won't give it to you, don't take it.
Yeah, are there any other things that you should look for and know if they have this list of things, then I can trust them?
Yeah, one other, not list of things. The other thing I would say is you're going to give up a big hunk of money to an investor, equity. Make sure they can give you some value. They all talk about, quote, being value add investors, but what the hell does that mean, right? So here's what you should be asking of them. Help me find employees that I need that are critical that can help me build the company. Help me find my way to customers and channels and corporate partners. Help me find downstream funding for next series rounds of funding. Those are the things that you should be asking of your investors. Can they bring you people, corporate contacts, and downstream funding sources? Was that worth it?
It was definitely worth it.
Before we go to the next
Yeah,
thing.
thank you. So back to then where we were going. Susan, what are you looking for when a company approaches you for them to be fundable? And yeah, what are you looking for?
Yeah. Well, I think the question about when a company is fundable is very loaded. It's going to be very different on who you're talking to. So I can talk specifically about us. So at Cortado, we do pre-seed, seed, and Series A checks. That can mean a lot of things, but what it means in terms of like when you're ready, we like to come in post product. So you don't have to be post revenue, you don't have to be making money, but we want to see a functioning prototype. Ideally, that's in pilot with the customer. So that's kind of the stage we like to play. So that's one thing that we look for. The other thing is the right team in place, or can we help get the right team in place? Liam and I were at another panel this weekend, and told the story about there's a company I'm really interested in Oklahoma City right now, but it's two technical co-founders that just don't have product or biz dev experience. And I've gotten feedback that the product is really cool, I just don't have any confidence that they can actually go sell it. And so we've been working with them, trying to make intros, but that team just isn't ready yet. So being post product, having a team that we feel good about, that's a good mix, that we are confident to do it. Those are kind of two key trigger points.
Susan's right. It depends on what stage the investor is focused on. And so we're focused primarily pre-seed and seed, but we do Series A. We've done as late as a Series D as a co-invest. So we kind of spans across the spectrum. But to William's point again, it's important for founders to do research on the VCs that they're talking to and understand what are they going to be interested in. And I think it's okay for a founder to talk to a VC that might be one stage beyond what they're raising, because it's important for you to know what you're going to do with your money, what milestones am I going to reach such that it's going to warrant a follow-on check. So when I'm talking to a pre-seed investor, I've already spoken to a seed investor. I know kind of what metrics they're looking for at that seed stage, and I can more appropriately tell my pre-seed investor, hey, I'm raising this amount of money. And these are the milestones that I want to hit because I've already kind of like done a little bit of market research. I know what the seed stage investors are looking for. And so it gives me confidence to know that this founder is doing research and thinking about what the next round of financing looks like. One of the things I think we look for at pre-seed and seed, I'll stick with pre-seed, the ability to recruit. I mean, to William's point, as a VC, we're trying to help you surround yourself with the best talent. It takes more than one person to build an amazing company. And so if you're selling me well, I'm hoping you're also selling your CTO or your CFO, whoever's going to help you get to the next step extremely well. So if you can demonstrate that kind of early on, and show like, hey, here's the team. Not funded yet, so no one's full time, but like you have kind of a team that you're demonstrating are going to jump on with you and pursue this dream with you. That's a really big signal. Alfred made a great point. The ability to take feedback. There will be a lot of meetings before someone will write a check into your company, and you can expect that you'll talk to a Dr. Piva of the world that will maybe have a different view on how you should go to market. And it would be great if the founder has some data to back up either their go-to-market strategy or conversely supports Dr. Piva's. And so I think the ability to support your hypothesis with some data, show how you're testing, what steps you're going to take, that's pretty critical.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think for us, it's also, we like to see founders that are kind of solving problems or solving opportunities where they have acute experience with certain problems. Figuring out based on their lived experience. If you ask Brian and Candace, they have certain profiles of founders. If you brought them a woman scientist founder that's solving a certain problem for women, then they also have a co-founder. Maybe they understand how to sell that problem. You could be selling to like a large customer, or you could be selling it by getting IF grants or stuff, or SDR grants, whatever that kind of like that selling looks like. They're ability to kind of talk about the problem in a way that people are able to digest it and kind of fund it, or join the team because they're able to really sell the problem, or they're selling the problem with like some really shockable revenue growth. And for us in the pre-seed stage, that can look either from 250,000 a year to their revenue up to 500,000. Of course, we'll go a little lower depending on founder problem, but we really like to see founders that really kind of have some really interesting perspective on it, whether it be good experience, really studying that problem, and creating a solution for it, and then all the things that they just said earlier. Just kind of also understanding kind of comps in the market, understand how much you need to solve this problem because you've already kind of researched other companies or other firms building in similar spaces, and okay, this much. I think it just helps the investor know this time. If it's not like a big scientific problem, it's a consumer product, maybe they built a brand that is really, really good at speaking to the customer, and the customer base is just they're resharing it on their social media. A ton of just like really great revenue from the fact that they have happy fans, like artists or any African fans. So I'm also still learning a little bit more about how we invest in election. I think we're probably going to get a lot of information from folks here. It's just having people that understand how to sell it, people that understand how to solve the problem, and people that have been able to sell it to the point of being able to build a team around me that are interested in solving the problem.
So we operate in a like pre-seed type of way. I don't even know if that is a thing, but pretty much creating access to opportunities like Shift and what Piva and support does. But so we give our founders $70,000 of capital where we don't take any interest and no equity. So we invest in Black and Brown-led startups. So with all the statistics, around the disparities in VC and funding and all of that, our approach to it is to kind of, level the playing field when it comes to investment. So when we look at our founders, we're with our current cohort that we have now, we have 9 companies of a variety of different industries. So it's not really industry specific, but more about we're looking at that founder. So like how driven are they? How persistent are they? Of course, the company and the product or service that they have, but more about the person and taking a risk in that, because I'm in BC school right now, so I'm learning myself. But on the panel last week, Piva, he touched on a great point when it comes to, as investors, we are making investments in these companies, but most of all, when it's time to write that check, we're making an investment to a founder. And so that was a really key point and a takeaway for me as I'm kind of going through this myself, is that, at the end of the day, what type of person are they? What type of, the psychological makeup of that founder? So we dig deep into that as well, especially with the earlier stages and, knowing the potential that they have to grow and kind of develop from there.
Yeah, I might, go ahead. Well, I was gonna say, there are definitely some similarities across here, but overall, like 5 different species, like what we look for. And so I think that's just a good lesson. Like when you're ready, like a no from someone, it's just a no. And, it can be having 50 conversations with different investors where you find the one that you're fundable for their thesis. And I think a lot of times you talk to people, in Oklahoma City, they come to us and we say no, it's not a fit, or they're not ready yet, and that to them it's just crushing. But really, there's it's maybe just we're not the right person, it's not the right stage. So I think really getting an entrepreneur's head that it can take 200 cold emails and 50 meetings and a lot of research on your part to try to figure out what these species are before you get in front of them and make sure you're looking at the right people. A lot of work. Yeah, and it's okay if it takes that much. Like that should feel normal to do. Have to do that on more work. Right? I think that's a really good question, or a good point. I think the one similarity that I really heard throughout was that they're looking for founders who are able to take feedback and not willing or not afraid to pivot. But then I also have a question from the founder perspective. So I've worked with founders here who have approached VCs, and they've been told, in order for you to have the right team, you have to, for example, get rid of one of these co-founders who has been with you since the beginning, or pivot in a direction that founder may not have considered before. And oftentimes that advice is really good and can be the linchpin to success for that company. But from the founder perspective, how do I know if the advice that I'm being told is something that I should really follow? And how do I know that I'm not giving too much to the venture capitalists that I'm working with? A lot of it goes back to having that relationship in place. Like if you've built that relationship over time, that you trust being known, and if you put in all that work to have these conversations with lots of funds, then you can start to figure out, is this just something this one person is telling me, or is this something across the board?
I think in a similar way where the VC would ask a founder to provide reasoning for a specific hypothesis and data to support go-to-market strategy, for example. I think similarly, a founder should want a good reason for why. I can't remember a time where we've asked someone to lose a co-founder, but I mean, it could make sense. I mean, there could be times where you can, as a VC, you can see kind of early on that one person is extremely gifted and the other person, while also might be a great person, may not be adding value to the company in the future, and so that could prevent VCs. I can see how that could prevent VCs from wanting to invest in the company. And I think being realistic with yourself and like hearing that feedback and taking that feedback and hopefully having some data behind it to know why that would be the right decision, and then kind of making your own decision on that. Makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just all, this is true of humans, we're just all amalgamations of our scars, right? And so,
It's beautiful.
Thank you. But we are an amalgamation of our scars. We also, we have the benefit of pattern recognition. So after 21 years, I've seen a lot of things longitudinally. And so when somebody's sharing that perspective, I think you know, there could be a very legitimate argument. You just have to believe those people actually know what the hell they're talking about. So don't take the advice from people that don't believe they don't know what the hell they're talking about. But if they do and they've been around, there might be some merit to it that's worth listening to. So one of the classic mistakes entrepreneurs make, and it happens over and over again, is they found a company, there's two of them, and rather than having that hard discussion about how much equity I should own versus how much you should own, we're just going to split it 50-50 because that's an easy conversation to have. And then there's three of us, we're going to do a third, a third, a third. And guess what? One person is actually working his ass or her ass off on it. The other two are, they haven't quit their day job, they're doing their thing, and they're sitting on all this equity. So sometimes that conversation could be very legitimately like, look, I want you to own this equity, right? Because you're doing all the work and these other people are sitting on the cap table doing nothing. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking for to kind of like make sure the incentives are all aligned correctly and placed correctly. So I'm not saying it's real or right or wrong or what they offered, but you know, if the person has been around in the industry for a long time, they've seen a lot of, you know, pattern recognition and things that don't work, and trying to help guide you away from those things. And what I mentioned at the last, just for the benefit of those in the audience, was like a lot of the criteria you see about venture capitalists of like, we invest in $1 billion markets, it's got to be proprietary, it's got to be high growth, right? All the check marks, right? Those are all just exclusionary things. Like if they don't meet them, we kick you out, right? Then we just won't do the deal. It's not a big enough market. It's not growing fast enough. You don't have a proprietary position. But ultimately, if we write the check, it's this weird amalgamated thing that I can never describe. But it's just at the end of the day, do I believe these people can pull it off? Right? Do I believe in them? They can do it, right? And it's just this weird gut feel thing, right? That just, do I feel like they can do it? Which is actually created, that gut feel is created during the due diligence process. So the due diligence process in and of itself is a data point. Forget about the content provided, but how you ran the process and how you said words you said, how you chose the words you said, and how you did, you know what I mean? Those things are all little data points that along that journey contribute ultimately to the end to say, do I believe these are the people that can pull this off for any number of reasons. So that final thing is literally just a gut check.
So moving on, back to sort of startups approaching venture capitalists. We touched on this in the beginning by saying approach early and bring those VC relationships in on some of that go-to-market strategy and some of those revenue projections. But at the same time, like how much of a financial projection and valuation perspective do you expect founders to have? How do you start that negotiation with a perspective as a founder?
So early stage financial projections are worthless. They're just worthless. All I'm really looking for is, are you going after a big market? Are the gross margins healthy? Because I just can't invest in a 25% gross margin business. I don't care how well you run it, it's just a tough business, right? So I'm just literally looking for basic 101 metrics. You know, big markets, high gross margins, good operating margins, those all point to capital efficiency in a scalable business, right? Those are things. 5-year pro forma, I forget. You know, sometimes I'll do a presentation, I'll hold a business plan in the air and I'll say the great thing about this business plan is of the 562 potential outcomes for the business, I'm holding the one that won't happen. So we've eliminated one. That's not to say I'm not a proponent of business planning, because it's important to have. It's a vehicle to communicate to investors and vehicle to communicate to teams. But financial modeling is, those are the metrics I look at. People may have a different opinion, but those are the things I'm checking off. I don't care what your 5-year number looks like. Matter of fact, I'm more worried about how do we get from 0 to 1 million. That's the hardest run. Forget about the 20 to 30 to 50. We'll get there, but the hardest one where we lose money is that 0 to 1, 0 to 5. It's that, show me how we're going to do that. Then we'll get the hockey stick down the road. We'll just do that. The second is on valuation. I would not, I mean, if you're raising money from angels, you need to put a valuation together because they're not sophisticated buyers. So you need to tell them what the deal is. I don't mean that in a bad way. Please don't interpret that bad. That was not meant to be, please don't.
No.
It really is. They're just not, they don't know how to price deals. They don't price. It's just, so you got to tell them that in exchange for this amount of money, you're going to, and that's fine. But when you come to people that are running funds, they're they're market pricers. They'll tell you what the valuation is, right? Now, I'll ask you, and it'll be, once again, it's part of a data point. I want to know how rational you are. So the question is actually more of a barometer for, are you in a reasonable headspace? Because at the end of the day, I can't have you. I've seen deals where people have invested in entrepreneurs that have too lofty evaluations and they're stuck in the deal because they can't raise the next round of funding because they're not, the founder will never get comfortable without at a valuation that's market, right? So that was, once again, it's pattern recognition, it's scars, right? That's a scar that people look at. So when you come to venture people, I wouldn't worry about this. And when you do raise money, just keep it simple. Keep everything simple. Don't make it cute. We've seen all the cute solutions. We've seen multiple classes of common stock that have differential voting because it's really cute. Just don't do anything. Just keep it simple. You get good legal counsel because we don't want to go.
Yeah, something to add to that. Yeah, two things. So on the valuations, because angels came up, I think. I know, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Because actually one thing that we've seen really screw founders over is taking too much angel funding at a valuation that's too high. And so that then when they're ready for institutional, we're not interested because it's out of our, it's too rich for us. So you should come in smart, especially with those angel engagements, and make sure, like, just because they'll give you a $20 million valuation before you have a product, like don't take it. That's not a good idea. I mean, I don't know. The other thing I would say, maybe a counterpoint to the financial model point, like, yes, like none of us up here look at your financial model and say, oh, they're going to make $200 million in year 5, we're going to invest. But I do think there's a good intellectual exercise about building it out for 12 months or 2 years. It kind of forces you to think through all the pieces. And then on the flip side, if I can look at 12 months and see what you think your sales are going to be and compare that with your pipeline, then again, this is another data point about how rational and well thought out is this versus are they just putting numbers here that they think I want to see versus does this actually make sense and are they capable of thinking through all of that? So we wouldn't make a decision on it, but I like to see how founders think through those pieces for sure.
I 100% agree with that. They mean nothing, but it is
But you have to do it.
Yeah, you have to do it. That's right. You have to do it. Because you might run the exercise and realize, wow, this is not a good business. And you can kind of at least like see if that's the case by running kind of a simple 12, 24, 36 month analysis. And yes, we're not going to look past 12 months. But to understand, to know that the founder is at least thinking about what this business could look like in the future is good to see. And it's also good for us to kind of have something to play around with. Also, if you have talked to a downstream investor and kind of know what milestones those downstream investors are looking for, it might not be the case that downstream investors are necessarily looking for, maybe they're not prioritizing revenue as much, maybe they're prioritizing the product launch. And so maybe understanding what your burn rate is going to be before you're going to launch a product and how much money you need to raise to hit that. That's maybe as important. So again, I couldn't agree more. I think that they don't matter, but they do in that helpful exercise.
I do think Susan's point on this, the sales pipeline is fantastic. If you come into a pitch with us and you've got your nice projections, and you turn your next sheet is a pipeline that shows me everybody you're calling on, how much they're worth, and on a risk-adjusted basis, here's what we think we'll close, and that'll link up to our year 2 forecast. I might write a check in that meeting, just because that's never happened. But actually, I would never write a check in that meeting. But I tell you, go to Susan, she'll write that. No, but I remember watching this Shark Tank episode one time, and this guy, he came out, and this was pre-COVID. He came out, he had these little filters on his nose. They were little membrane filters, 2A tape, rip the tape off, stick it on your nostrils. And it was a nasal filtering thing, right? And of course, the sharks just beat the crap out of the person. Like literally, like that's the most ridiculous. It looks stupid. You got these little things under there, like who would fund this thing? Right up until the point the guy pulled up a purchase order from either Japan or China for $3.5 million for these nasal filters. Well, guess what? They went, it was like on a dime. It was like they were just fighting over each other to get into the deal. So the best way to get money from venture, I'll tell you, is the harder check for us to write is we want to go build this and then go sell it. because we're taking two risks there, your ability to build it and sell it, versus look at these purchase orders we have and we need money to go fulfill. That's an easier check to write. So I tell people all the time, try to go get some form of sales if you want to raise money, because at least takes the market issue off the table. Otherwise, we'll tell you all the reasons why you can't sell it because we're so smart. The other thing I'll tell you is everybody's always like, well, how do I break this chicken and egg problem? How do I go sell something I may not have, right? Okay, let me help you out here. Okay, there are two things. Either I don't have anything or I've got a legit contract. There's a middle order right in the middle. Go get a letter of intent from the customer that says, if you deliver the product with these attributes, we'll buy it. It's not a full contract. They got technology outs on it, but at least as a venture person, I now have comfort that this somebody somewhere put their name on a document that they're willing to buy this product that had these performance. We invested in a company in our fund one called 4Health Technologies. It built this automated robot for mixing and prepping IV medications. We had 6 of those those letters of intent for about $750,000 a piece, each of them, from 6 different hospitals that would buy the device if it met these performance characteristics. Well, guess what? We went out and raised money right after September 11th. We had 3 term sheets on that because we had $5 million of basically orders in our hands. So everybody's always like, how do I break this chicken and egg problem? You can break it. Just simply say, look, sign me a letter of intent that you'll buy this with these, if I meet these performance attributes. Bring that to an investor, they'll love it.
Similarly, if maybe you have a consumer business, what can you do to create a landing page that's generating a ton of traffic? How are you creating kind of demand for this product that is yet to launch? There's one way to get kind of replicate the LOI.
Yep.
Those are great points. I want to jump ahead to the next question. We're running low on time here. And I'm really excited for both Alfred and Talia to take a stab at this one. But the question is, you've said no to a founder. So what do they go and do now?
I say keep on pitching people. Just because one person says no. I mean, how many investments actually end up being the investment that turns the fund for that? So even the ones that they said yes on, there was a reason why they said yes, but they ended up being wrong. Like at the end of the day, for one reason or another. So just because they say no to you doesn't necessarily mean you can't go break business back. Raise funding and have a sizable exit. Raise money back to the investor. So I would just say, like, yeah, if one person says no, I would just say, widen your funnel. If you pitch every impression in Tulsa, they say no, I would say ride up to St. Louis or drive out to Oklahoma City and drive down to Dallas and talk to those investors, see what they say. Take a flight out to California, see what those investors are saying to you. Fly out to New York. I mean, just keep on broadening your gaps. Eventually somebody's going to say yes to this. You just keep on trying. If you feel like you have something and you feel like you're doing something generating revenue for your business, at least from the no, make sure that you're getting some valuable feedback from that investor so that make it actionable and maybe tweak some certain things and get the next picture. You can go back to the drawing board and fix some things. Maybe this will get again in 3 to 5 months. But somebody says no. Yeah, like the business is crappy. Like, no, that's not the case. Sometimes there's like some legitimate reasons why you would say no. Going back to the previous conversation, there was a company that we were all really excited about, but even though financial modeling and all that stuff is not necessarily the biggest deal, like the most important thing, there is an importance of having clean, something that's clean and easy to digest to send to investors, easy to digest information. And we asked for some financials and some other stuff. What we got was like a really crappy PDF document. And it was just like, oh my God, man, what is this? And it soured everybody on the team. And it just really messed it up. So, we gave that feedback and we were able to bring that founder in. It's like, yo, we really like you. But this happened and you have this has soured everybody that makes an actual investment decision on this team. So fix this problem and then maybe you can come back to us in a few months, or maybe you can fix the problem in the near term. You can go talk to some angel investors and present a better case for yourself and maybe raise some money. So I would just say, going back to the original point of the question, a no is not a no for for your business, a no just between you and that person. And keep on pushing. Somebody's gonna like what you do, and somebody's going to be really, really interested in it, really curious about it, and they'll want to write a check.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Alfred kind of touched on it, but to elaborate a little bit, I think follow-up is really key. I know that with our application process, so we had 55 applicants for our last cohort. And so ended up taking in 9 companies. So we got 46 companies that got told no. And so we offered an invite for follow-up. So like, hey, this is a no, but we wanna kind of, help out with whatever you may be having problems with, or, just follow up with us and get some feedback. And so out of those 46, we only had 10 that actually took the approach to kind of get feedback. And so I think that's really important, especially in the earlier stages. I mean, it may be less about, your business being like, okay, just no to your business, more about like the approach that you took. Did I not, do the right things in my application? Did I not get my point across the way that I was supposed to? Do I have key areas that I'm needing assistance in? So follow-up is really key. And also that goes to the point of like continuing those relationships, building those relationships. Maybe it just wasn't right for that specific VC, but having those relationships, having them understand, who you are, what you're doing, may be able to create deal flow and further deals moving forward. So that piece is really, really key with us to follow up.
And the other thing is, don't get discouraged. I mean, like you hear these stories of like somebody goes to the Bay Area and on their first fundraising trip, they raise, they get 3 term sheets and they close it the next week, right? I mean, those are stories may happen. I'm actually not sure they actually really happen, but they may happen, but they're the anomalies. For every one of those, there's 1,000 of them. I mean, I'll use one case study of a company that was in a past portfolio company. The founding CEO was a guy who built a $25 billion market cap company in that space. The space is red hot. We had everything lined up in terms of the minimal viable product and had the whole team ready to go. We probably went to, so it sounds like a perfect deal, right? We probably went to 80 funds to get the deal done. 80. And the dynamics of that deal could not have been better. So it is hard to raise money. And so don't get discouraged. And because I think some of these stories you hear, I think are doing a disservice. It's just hard because timing matters. You got to hit the fund at the right time. They got to have capital. They got to have partners who are willing to have time to spend on it. There's just so many things that are outside your control that to get a deal done. Just don't go, crap, I've done 4 meetings and 5 and I haven't got a term sheet yet. You may have to do 100 meetings. Just be prepared.
Also ask the investor what would need to be true in order for you to decide about this deal. And try to collect that information across all the investors you're talking to. You can go make that happen.
And by the way, we know the game of like, oh, this deal's so hot. If you don't fund it, you're not going to get in. We know that. Especially in Oklahoma, I know the game. So I'm going to call Susan and then I'm going to call Will and say, have you seen these deals? They're like, yeah, we have it. And then we're going to find out how red hot it is. We'll put a couple more. No, but anyway, just those games, they're just be honest. Just be honest where you are. We know the game. We know how hard it is.
I think sometimes too, it's probably important for you to recognize, is your business, is venture capital appropriate for your business? Because sometimes maybe your business is a little more service oriented. You wouldn't expect a VC to invest in a business. Doesn't mean it's a bad business. Could be a great business making a very healthy living doing it. But I think understanding what financing is appropriate for your business also might. Again, this goes back to knowing the investors you're talking to.
And the other thing to remember is your best capital is to come from customers, not investors. Spend more time trying to raise money from customers, not investors, because it validates the product, it validates the market. Some of these companies get stuck in the business of their business model is raising money from investors. And so just raise money. Your best capital is from customers, not investors.
Right. So today, as we've heard, venture capitalists are also people. Build relationships with them. They're out in the community. You can find them. We've heard have a good go-to-market strategy and a good pipeline and a proof of concept that people are wanting to buy what you're selling. Do your diligence to build your own trust with the venture capital firm choosing. Have some really professional financial projections, but they're not going to be the linchpin on if we get invested or not. And it's not too early to approach a venture capitalist. They want to work with you from the beginning to really get to that place of being funded. So that is going to wrap up our panel. We are going to transition into a pitch competition. We have 3 founders in the room who are going to be pitching. In between now and then, we are going to set up some food outside, so the themselves. Pitch competition will go until 1 p.m., but in between we'll have a couple of minutes here, so feel free to say hi to our wonderful panelists and ask them some of those leftover questions that you may have. But the very last thing, I just want to go down the road really quickly. How can someone in this room get in touch with you?
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn as well. And also I'm here in the incubator every day. So Act Tulsa, shout out to, we got some Act Tulsa folks in here right now. But we're over here in the incubator, so I'm here today.
LinkedIn, also Workflow Wednesdays, that's second and fourth Wednesday of the month. Come out to the one next week. We're having a big Friendsgiving dinner. So the whole license team's gonna be in town. We're gonna have chicken, turkey, grilled greens, everything. So come in, have a good time, eat the whole team, and shoot me a note.
Ditto, so LinkedIn, email, I'm Will at Tinto Capital. Everyone at our firm is first name at Capital. You can see us hanging out in the incubator. We've got a squad in the old Senio building. We're about to move into our office, which is the old rusty crane. Yeah.
Sam, not hard to find on all the social channels. Trying to be more active on Surf, Twitter, but not the thing. And then we have an office over here too.
All right, so we'll dismiss for about 10 minutes, grab some food, hang out. We're going to set up the room for the pitch competition, and then we'll get started. Thank you, everybody.
I played. I love the experience. Exactly. Yes, exactly.
I'm a member of the seed study.
Okay.
So how does that fit into your, are you ever funding any like?
So they've invested, we don't invest in seeds.
You're not
But
part
we,
of that.
but we do a lot of deals. Yes. Yeah, I've been talking, actually.
More about. Yeah, we probably are.
You're right.
Yeah, no, CSEP groups have invested in many of our deals side by side. So we're invested, it's like they've been in a number of deals with us. Yeah, we know that. We co-invest a lot with ITV and so many. We're Big Ten people. We like investing with everybody.
Get their own money out. There's many opportunities.
I have a lot of friends coming from. That is so rare. It seems like everybody's like wants to do that thing. We need more people.
Right here, it's like. Those more trees are like 30, 40,
Oh. My bachelor's teacher and my family is all.
Yeah, well, that's what we find out.
Yeah.
Yep. So we need.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
This first from up here, just good stuff.
And are you? My wife is a child. I mean, I'm surprised.